looks like I made a mistake on the H. Of course, it wasn't my fault, but someone read to me pi halves. And I wrote down pi halves. I guess that's my fault, I suppose. But it was actually pi thirds, which changes the answer entirely. So on this one, we're still doing the cosine half angle. Let's just do this one properly. This will be the cosine pi thirds divided by 2, which is actually pi 6. So cosine of pi 6, maybe you recognize that, maybe you don't. Well, multiply it by 180, that is a 30-degree angle. And the cosine of a 30-degree angle, we have already seen is the square root of 3 over 2. So, sorry about that mistake. Yeah, got to be careful copying problems. All right, letter K. Tangent, 5 pi 12ths, job 1. Figure out what 5 pi 12ths is. Again, little logic, pi 6 is 30. Pi 12ths, well, that's going to be 15. Half of 30. Makes sense. So we want 5 15-degree angles, that's 75 degrees. Or the old-fashioned way, multiply by 180 over pi, it still works. All right, 75 degrees, well, we can split this up into a 30 and 45 like we did before. We could also do a half angle, 150 over 2. That would work as well. For this one, I'll probably just do the sum formula. So I'm going to split that up into a 30 plus 45. Right, and see what we get here. Tangent, sum formula goes tangent of the first, same plus or minus. So plus tangent of the second. And then 1 minus opposite SIGN, opposite plus or minus. We got tangent of 30, tangent 45. All right, from those previous right triangles, we can verify that the tangent of 30 degrees is going to be the square root of 3 over 3. Plus, the tangent of 45 is just 1. And then we'll have 1 minus the tangent of 30 again is the square root of 3 over 3. Tangent of 45 is multiplying that by 1. In essence, changing nothing there. All right, that's called a complex fraction. As you know, you have to multiply top and bottom by the least common denominator of all your denominators. I mean, those are 1s over 1 over 1. So 3 over 3. Distribute a 3 through the numerator. Distribute a 3 through the denominator. And we should have something here. Distribute 3 through, we get the square root of 3 plus 3. Numerator. Denominator, you get 3 minus the square root of 3. And then you know you're not allowed to leave radicals in your denominator, so in this case it's going to require a conjugate. So, conjugate of the denominator would be 3 plus the square root of 3. So numerator, we're going to have to FOIL. Denominator, well, we could just do first and last. So in the numerator, you get 3 square root of 3. Outer is 3. Inner is 9. Last is 3 square root of 3. Denominator, first is 9. Last is 3. So 9 minus 3. Cleaning up the numerator, looks like it's 12 plus 6 square root of 3 over 6. But wait a minute. 12, 6, and 6 have a greatest common factor of 6, so divide them all by 6. So 6 divided by, or 6 into 12 goes 2 times. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So we get 2 plus the square root of 3. That should be the answer. I'm going to check. Yes, thank goodness. All right, letter L. 7 pi 8ths. Again, what's pi 8ths? Well, I know pi fourths, and you should too, is 45 degrees. 45 pi 8ths, well, that's 22.5 degrees. How does that help me? Well, I want 7 of them. What's 7 22.5 degree angles? I don't know, maybe I should just grab my calculator and multiply. I think it's 157.5. So this is the cosine of 157.5. Figure out the reference, quadrant 2, you're looking at a 22.5 degree angle. So cosine of 157.5 is the same thing as the cosine of 22.5, with the exception that you're in quadrant 2, and cosine is definitely negative in quadrant 2. All right, well, here's a new one, 22.5. That's definitely not going to be a 30, 60, 45 added or subtracted, but it could definitely be a half angle. We're thinking 22.5 is half of 45. So let's call this a 45 divided by 2. Now, as far as the negative goes, that is choosing your plus or minus in the formula. Because remember, the formula goes plus or minus square root. Cosine will be 1 plus cosine of a over 2. The minus has been chosen, so keep with the minus. Square root 1 plus the cosine of 45. This is all over 2. And then we find the exact value of cosine of 45, which hopefully you're starting to memorize by now. Cosine of 45 is square root of 2 over 2. And this is over 2, and you got yourself a complex fraction in your radicand. So extend the radicand. We'll multiply top and bottom by 2 over 2 inside the radicand. The LCD will distribute in the numerator. In the denominator, we'll just multiply the 2's. So we get negative square root 2 plus the square root of 2. The 2's are canceling. All over 4. Really, the only other thing I would ask you to do is split these up top and bottom. So this would be negative square root 2 plus the square root of 2 all over the square root of 4. Okay, we're writing it. Square root 2 plus the square root of 2 all over 2. 2's are wild there. All right, let's try to finish this off. Oh yeah, letter M. Now, letter M. See, letter M, we got tangent of 15 pi 8. Tangent 15 pi 8. All right, I'm going to surrender. Got my calculator. 15 pi 8, we're going to multiply by 180 over pi. Pi's cancel, 8 into 180 times 15, here we go. So 15 times 180. I'm getting 337.5. So we got ourselves tangent of 15 pi 8, which is just the tangent of 337.5 degrees. And we draw ourselves a 337.5 degree angle, which puts us in Q4, which has a reference of 22.5 degrees. What a shock. Okay, so what is the tangent of 337.5? Well, it's just like the tangent of 22.5, except you're in quadrant 4, where tangent is definitely negative, so let's just call this negative tangent of 22.5 degrees. And then from there, it's up to us to decide how we're going to play this. I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself. First of all, 22.5, we're doing a half angle, half of 45. The 0.5 kind of tips me off that we're going to be using a half angle identity here. So negative tangent 45 over 2. Well, there are 3 official formulas for tangent half angle, if you look those up. First one, I would not recommend the giant square root, the plus or minus giant square root, 1 minus cosine over 1 plus cosine. There are better versions. The one I like the best is the one that just has sine in the denominator. And then in the numerator, it goes 1 minus cosine. There's another that says sine in the numerator and then 1 plus cosine. Again, I like this one. I'd rather have a single denominator than a binomial denominator, so I get to choose. We're going with this. Let's replace the a's with 45 degrees. Remember, that's our a. This is tangent half angle. All right, so cosine 45, back to memorizing root 2 over 2. Sine of 45, the same. All right, you got two issues here. You got radicals in the denominator, but your bigger, more pressing issue is you have a complex fraction. Therefore, multiply top and bottom by 2. You'll distribute that through the numerator and get 2 minus the square root of 2. In the denominator, 2 times square root of 2 over 2. The 2's cancel. You get square root of 2, which leads you to your next problem, square root in the denominator. So this one is not going to need a conjugate. Top and bottom. All right. Well, sorry, kind of got cut there. Hopefully this splices together nice. I didn't quite finish this problem. We have to distribute the square root of 2 through the numerator. We get 2 square root of 2 minus square root of 2 times the square root of 2 over the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. And you notice these three have the greatest common factor of 2. When you divide it, we will get 1 square root of 2 minus 1 over, we can write over 1, but yeah, something I just noticed from the original problem. I forgot to bring my negative down. Is that a problem? Yeah, it's kind of a problem. Not the right answer. Now, what does it change? It changes the very end of the problem. Now, that negative has to be distributed. So we do have to be careful there. And we're getting sloppy. All right, so negative square root of 2 plus 1, or if you prefer, 1 minus the square root of 2. Whoops. I'm sure some of you were yelling at me. You forgot your negative. I did. I forgot my negative. So I remembered it at the end. Good thing. All right.